the journalist, political affairs commentator, and Arise News analyst, Dr. Constance Ikeokwu, and we're also joined by Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, who's a current affairs analyst, professor of communications, and deputy director of the School of Postgraduate Studies at Bayes University. Thank you very much indeed. I managed to get through that one. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we've had a problem with some of our equipment, and therefore we're not seeing any pictures, but that's okay. We'll listen to what you guys have to say and make up our minds after that. Let me start with you, Constance. What is your reaction to that attack?
Well, it is an unfortunate incident that happened. The good news, as you mentioned earlier, is that 2 of the members of staff have been rescued. So the government is on top of it, and hopefully everything calms down. But it's really been a couple of years of assault. The country has been under assault by all sorts of criminal gangs and terrorists and insurgents, non-state actors, and all of that. And it's been very frustrating for Nigerians. The president hasn't risen up to the occasion during the last 8 years. He came in as president promising to do quite a bit of things. On this particular score, he has failed woefully. I think Nigerians would score him very low. Most times it seemed as if he was unaware of what was going on or totally helpless. He also seemed overwhelmed by the problems of the country generally, not only security-wise. But you would say when you ask for the job and you get it, then you have to do the job. For Anambra particularly, they've had this issue of unknown gunmen. I don't even know who came up with that term. It's ridiculous because, yes, gunmen are unknown, but you find them, you chase them, find them, and then let them bear the consequences. Anyway, they've been having this problem in the state. The current governor, Chukwuma Soludo, has been in power a little over a year. And I would say that he can learn a lot from his predecessors. The immediate past one, former Governor Willie Obiano, and then there was Peter Obi. Peter Obi particularly was fantastic when it came to security because they've been having security challenges for a while. He literally ran criminal gangs out of town in that state. And it's because he came up with a plan, and he worked in synergy with the Inspector General of Police. We know that security is centralized in Nigeria. That itself has its problems. But as the Chief Security Officer of your state, you have to find a way around it. And that's exactly what he did, with the Commissioner of Police. And security was heavily funded. You need funds to do this, buying equipment for the police officers, giving them allowances, communications, gadgets, and all sorts of things. And the police officers themselves became driven to work in synergy with traditional rulers, vigilante groups, and they did quite a bit. So he can learn a lot, and hopefully he can rein in the situation.
Right. You made quite a number of points there. The one thing we know, Constance, is that nobody has come out and claimed responsibility for that attack specifically. And what often happens is that the authorities just say, oh, well, it's IPOB. Whereas, there are other people who are sort of in the mix, criminal organizations and so on. So with that in mind, what sense do you get of how dangerous the southeast region of Nigeria is now, both for local people and for foreigners? Because it is now seen as a region plagued by violence, violence generally, as well as a separatist insurgency.
Well, I spoke to a couple of people this afternoon just to get a sense of what's going on ground. We are here in Abuja, so we are talking to different people to understand how terrible or frightening the situation is. What I hear is that, yes, it is a challenge, but it is not as bad as it's been portrayed, because when you have news, especially on television, it's often, seen as a very, very massive problem. Yes, it is, but it's not that terrible. They tell me, my sources tell me.
Well, I mean, we heard the guy from Imo State earlier who was saying, although he's making a political sort of statement, but he was suggesting that things have calmed down a lot.
Yes, I mean, I have people that go to the Southeast regularly. Yes, there is fear here and there. People are advised, okay, do not drive a very flashy car, stay calm, stay undercover, don't expose yourself too much. But life is going on. It is true that this kind of news discourages people. It also brings about some kind of fear. It is not good for business at all. Neither is it good for the quality of life. You want people to be able to drive into your state if they have to, or pass through your state if they want to. So you have to get on top of the situation, which is what a lot of stakeholders in the state are discussing with the governor of that state, Governor Chukwuma Soludo, telling him that he really needs to get a plan together quickly, working with different aspects of security agencies, whether it's police, whether it's the military, whether it's the NDLEA. Then there are the vigilante groups also. The vigilante groups for so many years have proved to be very useful to security agencies because they are the local people. When you come to the villages, for instance, people know who is coming in and who is going out. Some of these attacks have been also said to come from foreigner people that come from other states that come in, commit the attack, and they run out. So because the security agencies may take time to come in, to arrest them, they're able to disappear. So while it is a problem that needs to be tackled, life is going on as usual. Of course, in Nigeria, there's a heat, and people die, and the next day we forget about it and we move on, which shouldn't be. The point to make, though, is that the leader matters. The leader has to take this on very seriously because security affects every aspect of life. So you have different states in Nigeria that have faced different sorts of problems, and governors have handled it in different ways. You can compare notes with your counterparts, with your colleagues from other states. Also, because police is centralized, you need to have a very good relationship with the Inspector General of Police. You need to have very good relationship with the Army, for instance. These are people that are useful, or agencies that are very useful, to tackle the problem in your state when it occurs. But you need to have a plan that should be implemented. It shouldn't be sporadic. Sporadic doesn't work at all, as we have seen. So it needs to be a plan that you implement, methodically over a period of time. It can be done. It can be done, and if a governor that is serious can do it.
Okay. Well, Prof, we heard from the United States, and it's quite extraordinary that once it involved the Americans, within a few hours, I mean, it got the attention of the US Secretary of State. And to some extent, some people have suggested that if this is IPOB motivated, as opposed to just a regular sort of attack, I mean, kidnap attack, not that it makes it any better, but if it's got that political ideology behind it, and they've seen that they've got the attention of the US Secretary of State within a few hours, that might be an incentive to do it again, assuming they knew that that was an American US Embassy convoy. But beyond that, the US also said it was working with Nigerian security services to investigate the attack. What would be, in your assessment, the extent of US involvement in that investigation? And is it likely to be more muted because no US citizens were in the convoy?
Yeah, I think I want to go with your last word, and there's going to be it's going to be muted. They're going to be quiet about it, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be effective. Here we're talking about one of the most sophisticated nations on planet Earth in many regards, irrespective of their own challenges too. And of course, you see how priced they hold the average U.S. citizen. You see,
but I mean, there were no U.S. citizens.
No, I'm just
the first thing they said.
No, that's fine. I'm just
no American citizens.
No, that's fine. I'm just.
So let's all relax.
I'm giving the background.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You see how priced they hold.
Yeah.
Their citizens. It doesn't matter what the citizen is going through in any part of the world. They'll pull all these stops. Go for broke.
That is true.
To rescue rescue that citizen. So again, you can also extend that whenever their interest is affected, they don't joke with it. And you can expect that when it is in a developing country, they ordinarily will have the upper hand in their ability to deal with it. You know, whether dealing with state actors or non-state actors. And you can expect that if it's a direct attack, deliberate attack, if the attackers actually knew that it was a U.S. convoy, you know, and they deliberately they really had gone after them, you can expect the U.S. authority to respond in more direct ways. But I don't want to believe that that was the case, really. Just like we said, they were probably indiscriminate. And
yes.
I also want to believe that our own authorities, ordinarily, sometimes they do respond commendably, but in this instance, you can expect that they are responding much more quickly because foreign interest, a critical foreign interest is involved. We may not be able to rule that out. So if we have a combination of those elements, of those lines of zeal, you know, conflicting, coming together, we should begin to look at a solution at some point in the future. Because, like I said, these fellows are not spirits, you know. They are human beings, they reason, and of course they have lines of supply, you know. Who is giving them these weapons, you know? Who is funding them, you know?
Yeah.
Who is,
so there's a footprint that can be traced.
That can be traced.
That's a good point.
And if we are genuine about it, if the agencies are actually genuine about it, all hands are on deck, there's no fragmented patriotism across levels of citizenry. In no time they'll be taken out.
Prof, I want to thank you very much indeed for joining us on this pictureless production. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is a current affairs analyst, professor of communications, and deputy dean of the School of Postgraduate Studies at Bayes University. And Constance, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Constance Ikeokwu is a journalist, political affairs commentator, and a Rise News analyst.